Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time.
Okay, so I know, you hate me right now. You read the title of this and you thought, that rat bastard. I mean, how the hell did he get one of these? Well, it was a birthday gift. And I know you hate me right now because I have this and I have that. And a lot of you have been trying to get just one of these. All I can say that is keep hope. Use nowinstock.com. That really helps out. And you will get one of these eventually. Don't lose faith. But as of right now, yes, I do have a Series X now. And I'm going to get into my first impressions of it. Kind of like what I'm thinking. Yes, I will be doing a comparison between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. But for right now, I'm just doing my first thoughts and opinions on the Series X. And so, hope you enjoy. Okay, so for starters, my first thoughts was of the box presentation. And the box presentation is really nice. It really is something special. It feels like they wanted you to have an experience getting this, opening it up, setting it up. I mean, this almost felt like Phil Spencer said, "We spared no expense." You know, it kind of felt like that. And yeah, it does kind of feel like with the box presentation that they did spare no expense. It does feel like the box was very well designed, and I like that. Now, something that really surprised me is the fact that this box is not as big as I thought it'd be. I mean, I've seen all these YouTube videos of people standing next to it, and I'm sure right now this thing looks really big compared to my torso. Like, my torso almost can hide completely behind it. And I'm not a tiny person. I'm about 5'7" to 5'8", and I just have it up really high. But no, this remarkably is not that big. I mean, honestly, looking at it, it does seem like it's big, but when you really get down to it, really start interacting with it, it's a lot smaller than you'd think it'd be. And to be completely honest, fairly and objectively, the design is growing on me. I know, it's a monolith. It's just a black box. But I was reading an interview with like Phil Spencer, and he said he went to the engineers and said, "Guys, what do you need for the best air cooling system possible?" And they said, "We need a PC tower." It's like, okay, we will design a PC tower. And that's what they did. And yeah, this thing is like a small PC tower, and it kind of runs like a PC. And I'm not upset about that because I don't have to rip it out and change the RAM card or whatnot. And I mean, hell, they even do kind of give you some PC features. Like back here is the storage expansion where you can put an additional solid state drive in there. Although those are really expensive. I have not tried getting one because, you know, a little bit too pricey for my liking. But like the overall design, I do like. I like the subtle like green look when you're coming at an angle from the top. And I even love that there's a little vent on the back here where if you were to accidentally, I don't know, put your new copy of Gears Tactics on the top like that, it's literally covering up every hole. and the fan is not strong enough to push that off. So where does that heat go? Well, it would just build up in the tower and destroy the system, but they created a little slot here so he could still escape out the back here if it had to. I really like little design things like that. I think that's really cool. Probably the only thing I'm not happy about with the design is, for some reason, this likes to capture fingerprints for some reason. And like back here, yeah, you can see the fingerprints like covering up right here. And like I can't even wipe it away, can I? Yeah, no, it's just like that. And so that sucks. I try to avoid touching the face at all because that's the presentation side. Yeah, but I do understand why they kind of went with this design, because they wanted to deal with the heating issue. And, you know, Xbox 360 had a real heating issue. Xbox One was an improvement from the 360S, and they still were really concerned. They didn't want another Red Ring of Death happening ever again. And so I totally get their paranoia so many years after. Now, when it comes to the controller, I will say that part of me feels like they went super cheap with this, and part of me feels like they actually made a smart move with this. So it's almost exactly like an Xbox One controller. It feels roughly the same. It has kind of the same buttons. The only difference is there's some more textured parts of the controller. It feels a little bit lighter. The D-pad is a little bit more clicky than a standard Xbox One controller. And of course this share button right here, which I do really like. Because I captured a lot of footage for my reviews, and on the old Xbox One controllers, I hit the home button and then real quick the X button. And sometimes that didn't always work, and so it's nice to just be able to do the share button now and get that footage I need for my reviews. So while you may not be big at that, you know, that's something I did really enjoy. Now, I wouldn't say this controller is cheaply made, but it does feel like some corners were cut with making this over an Xbox One controller. Xbox One controllers kind of feel a tad heftier to me than this, although props for giving you 2 AA batteries with this system. So even if you don't have any rechargeable batteries, you can still enjoy the system right off the bat. And one other real cool benefit is if you had any rechargeable batteries you're using for the Xbox One, chances are they will work with this. I had 2 sets of rechargeable batteries designed specifically for my Xbox One controllers. They work perfectly fine in here. I actually tried them before using the free batteries they gave with this. So, and a lot of those Xbox One rechargeable batteries are dirt cheap, so you don't have to get the standard Xbox Series X recharge plug and play kit that's like 20 to 30 bucks right now. You can actually get some of these rechargeable battery kits from Amazon, which are super cheap, for Xbox One, and they'll still work with this. So that's pretty neat. Now, one thing I did notice is the startup of this system is much faster than my Xbox One. My Xbox One used to take like forever for it to start up, and then loading was pretty hefty on some of the later games on my Xbox One. And so the startup on this is super fast. You hit startup, the little logo happens, and like 9 seconds you're on your home screen. So that was really awesome. I'm glad they improved that from the last generation. Another thing that was really nice was moving my library from my Xbox One to this. So essentially, you can actually take an external hard drive like one of these. You can take it from your Xbox One and just plug it in the Series X. You don't have to format, you don't have to do anything. It'll just read it. And another plus is you can then take that hard drive out and plug it into your Xbox One and now just read it. Like, they designed this to be very co-friendly with the Xbox One and vice versa. So that was really awesome. I'm glad I didn't have to format my hard drives for them to work on my Series X. Now, something I did notice, it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is something worth noting, is if you're moving from Xbox One to this, over half of your Xbox One games are going to need a hefty update for them to work on this system. They're not just plug and play. All right. And now, surprisingly, not all of them. There were a couple of Xbox One games that I tried doing an update for. I couldn't find one. It's like it just started playing. And so it's like, okay, that was kind of interesting. And it also is important to know that even though you can play this offline and you can play games offline with this, this is a very internet-oriented system. It requires you to be online when you start up for the very first time. Once you make this your home console, then you can start enjoying stuff offline. It requires you to be online whenever you put in an Xbox One game so you can get the update for it to work. It requires you to be online when you do a backwards compatible game for the first time and have to install that file on. Once you get the stuff installed, however, you can play a lot of it offline, but you do need that internet entry for this. So that is important to know. Another neat thing about this is backwards compatible games, especially 360 and Xbox Classic games, can benefit from auto HDR and FPS boost, which is frames per second boost. And this is a huge deal because there's a lot of games out there that have been stuck at like 30 frames per second, but now can run at 60 frames per second. Like Gears of War Judgment can run at 60 now. Alien Isolation can run at 60. Fallout 4 can run at 60 frames per second. This is stuff that people have been clamoring for a long time and haven't been able to see it. And so there's a nice, healthy list of games that have auto HDR and frames per second boost, and you can also turn these features off if you're not entirely happy with the upgrade. There are some games people have said the auto HDR doesn't work quite as well as it does on other games, and so it's nice that you have that option to turn those off if you want. Now there's this big new feature with this that a lot of people have been screaming about called Quick Resume, and yes, it is pretty neat. But a lot of people have been pointing out that you could switch between 3 games at once and play them in sync. It's like, I don't ever do that. Like, I've never felt the need to be playing a couple minutes of Avengers and then, okay, I'm switching to this racing game and play a couple minutes of that. It's like, okay, now I'm switching to this backwards compatible 360 game. Okay, now I'm switching back. Like, I've never done that. A lot of people really been trying to push that you can do that. Like, I can see the attraction of like being a gamer, you're playing like a single player game and your friends contact you over Xbox Live and say, hey, we're doing this multiplayer game, you want to join in? And he can then just, you know, jump out of his single player game into that. I get that aspect. I don't get the more extreme of just jumping between 3 games all at once. And you can do up to 3 games at once. But the thing that I absolutely love about Quick Resume is the fact that now you can actually kind of have a rest mode for the Xbox systems. I was told that the Xbox One could go into rest mode while you're in the middle of a game. I tried doing it. I could never figure it out. I could never get it to work. With this, it's super easy. I just hit pause, go to the menu, and I can turn off my console. And then when I turn my console back on, I could just continue off where I left. And so it's like, yeah, that was a feature that was introduced with the PlayStation 4, continuing on to PlayStation 5. Although you can't turn off those systems, but you can put them into like a rest mode. And with this, you can turn it off. So that's surprising. But it's still being able to continue off where you left off in a game without having to go through the menu again, through the opening credits, and then having to load the state is pretty cool and nice. So I do like that Xbox has like joined PlayStation in the 21st century. And I will also say that this thing is very quiet. The disk drive is now officially louder than the fan, and so that's pretty nice. And yes, I've tried some Series X and enhanced for Series X games, and this system has some very pretty games. So like one game I tried was Gears Tactics. Alright, and it is very gorgeous once you get optimized, has some very nice reflections. I've tried Halo Infinite on the Series X for a couple of seconds, and interesting enough, far less anti-aliasing than the Xbox One, But playing it on the Series X, I'm kind of impressed how well they had Halo Infinite optimized for Xbox One. Just saying. The frame rate is much smoother now on the next system. You're doing 60 frames per second, where on the Xbox One, you're only getting 30 frames per second. So that was noticeable. And then, yes, I've tried Gears 5 on this. Very gorgeous, nicely optimized. I haven't quite tweaked those system settings yet. And then Forza Horizon 4 and 5 I've played on this, and 5 is very beautiful on this system. And so, yeah, is this worth getting? I would say so. Even though it doesn't have a lot of exclusives out now, it's going to be getting some exclusives, and I think this is a pretty fun console to get. Quick note, I do realize I was far more critical of my PS5 when I did that first impressions video, but keep in mind that was like almost 2 years ago when I did that. And so yeah, I mean, I'm happy with my PS5. I think this is a cool system. I'm glad I have both, and now I'm going to be getting you reviews of Series X and PS5 games on the way. So yeah, anyway, that's been my first impressions of the Series X, and my name's Christopher Connell with 11 Hour Reviews, and that will be all.